Hello all, this is Jeff Harvie from Down Under Visa, and we are the registered migration agency practice here in Manila. We take care of visas to Australia for Australian Filipina couples. Got some fairly exciting news for everybody today. Philippines borders. Fully vaccinated travellers may enter very soon. Some hope on the near horizon. The Philippines is making plans to reopen the Philippines to international travellers. A proposal has been put forward to the IATF, which is the interagency task force here in the Philippines which manages the COVID situation, by the Department of Tourism to open the country up again to tourist visas who are, wait for it, fully vaccinated. The anti-vaxxers probably won't like this, I would imagine. However, it is the most logical thing I've heard of in a very long time in this whole COVID drama. This was driven by the fact that the economy here has really suffered, obviously, as it has in Australia too. Plus, Philippines tends to be a little less hard-nosed than certain sides of the Australian government in that it is aware of the suffering of people being kept apart from loved ones. It does actually matter. Like, we have a family member, his father-in-law of my brother-in-law, died recently, heart attack. The hospital called it COVID because they get more money that way, so don't get me started on that. But I guess he recently died. That was a few days ago. His daughter and her family are all in Spain now. They can't travel back to attend his funeral. Now, that's absolutely unheard of in the Philippines, as most of you would know. And of course, to the audience I'm talking to mostly here, Australian Filipina couples, a lot of you are kept apart, and they are aware of this, and it matters to them. So the Bureau Chiefs of both the Department of Foreign Affairs here and the Bureau of Immigration have expressed this recently, and that they want the situation to change as soon as possible. So they have set up a government working group to sort out the protocols on how this will work. They are proposing what they call a green lane at the airport, where those fully vaccinated travellers may pass through with ease, and with safety too, of course, being separated from those who are not vaccinated. Now, I would imagine this would mean no need to have hotel quarantine, or maybe very short quarantine. They haven't worked that one out. I'm just guessing there wouldn't be a lot of logic to needing it, but you know, it's only my guesswork at this stage. It hasn't been worked out. And they're talking about a COVID passport issued to those who are certified, fully vaccinated, to ensure that no one dodgy gets in with fake paperwork, etc. Now, they already have an IATF travel permit system, apparently, which is here for the vaccinated, and they've already trialled that in conjunction with Philippine Airlines. So, on to the next question. Australia, why not open borders to the fully vaccinated? This is something I've long thought about. So why isn't the Australian government thinking along the same lines? Insist on vaccinations and let the vaccinated in. Why not? The better vaccines, like the Pfizer and the Moderna, they not only cut the risk of infection to near to nothing, but they also cut the risk of spread to a point that a fully vaccinated traveller is really a very highly acceptable risk. Now, I discovered in my research that there's quite a number of countries which have actually already opened their doors to vaccinated travellers. I won't prattle them all off, it's not very exciting. But yeah, quite a few. All of Europe is actually looking at opening their borders to vaccinated travellers themselves this European summer. So maybe as early as next month. I believe Thailand has similar intentions. So, I mean, it's the way the world is going. I mean, to me, it's just ridiculously logical. You know, if they're vaccinated, well, why on earth not let them in? What possible reason for keeping people out? On to reasons. Okay. Look, I very rarely get political, as people are quite aware. I've got far more important things to do than worry about what politicians do and think, but I believe that a large percentage of coalition voters are in favour of a Fortress Australia policy. You know, we don't need them, keep them out, and etc. And Mr Morrison, like all good politicians, is highly driven by what the voters think. That happens on all sides of politics, of course. I'm not taking sides here. It takes a very brave man in politics to actually take a stand for what is right. The days of right-wing politicians defiring their core supporters, well, went out with Malcolm Fraser. He let in Vietnamese refugees purely because it was the right thing to do. Again, I'm trying not to get political here. Fraser said we fought a war there, they arrive on our doorstep. Well, it's the right thing to do, let them in. Howard, happy to fight a war in Afghanistan and Iraq, etc., says, oh gosh, we can't let anybody in. Hypocritical. But anyway, I mean, it does take an exceptional politician who can try to raise the overall standard of Australian society rather than just appealing to the lowest common denominator to get the easy vote. There was also Rob Borbidge many years ago in Queensland, if anybody remembers him. He basically committed political suicide. I mean, that was the end of his career, and he knew it. He supported the gun control issue. He believed in it, he supported it. His constituents, being largely rural, obviously didn't. That was it. He was out, and he had to give up on politics. There was no place for him, but he's still proud of what he did. It would be nice if a few more politicians would do things like that. But yes, I think Mr Morrison will try to drag this out on the Australian side, possibly because of elections coming up, where he can do the taking a tough stance. So that's what I'm suspecting. However, there is pressure from Australian business, from universities and tourism and business in general, who are screaming for workers, and the tourism industry is screaming for people to come to Australia and spend their money. So there's a lot of pressure. There will no doubt be a lot more pressure put on the government to let in the fully vaccinated traveller, especially when Europe does it very soon. Already lots of pressure, but despite what the small minds think, and the days of isolated countries is absolutely history, thank goodness. So hopefully that will change a little sooner than what they're predicting. But anyway, we're back on to the issue of the Philippines borders opening. Now I've had my little rant. So, borders opening, hope on the horizon. So obviously this will mean that Australians will soon, hopefully very soon, be able to travel to the Philippines again once they've had their 2 jabs. So that means that those couples who haven't seen each other in 18 months or more, of which we have quite a few clients like that, now they can get back to some sort of normality. Their parents can see their children again, and those who want to see their sweethearts who they haven't they've known literally for years, but they haven't been able to meet in person, they will be able to actually do about it. So they'll be able to actually do that. They will be able to actually travel to the Philippines and meet in person, which is great. Just some thoughts I had, because a lot of people hearing this will go, great, I've been waiting to marry this girl, she's the right one, and I'm sure she is. Come over here and get married. Some thoughts here, some insights from one who's been here for many years and been through a lot of things. First thing, this is the Philippines. Nothing happens in a hurry. When there's a quick and easy way of doing things, the Philippines tends to choose the opposite. The saving time is not a high priority here, as I guess a lot of people have an abundance of time. Also keeps people employed if you can have them needlessly doing needlessly complicated things. Look, normally in non-COVID times I always told people 3 to 4 weeks stay here if you want to get married. Right now I'd say probably 2 months. So because everything remains slower than the usual slow here. So I mean, what that means is you most likely will have to stay longer than the standard 1 month visa-free stay. That's not particularly difficult, but it comes down to whether you can get that amount if you're working, if you can get 2 months off work in order to do that. So think about that one. Another one, very important one, if you have not met before, arriving and saying, gosh, it's nice to meet you, and her saying, you too, but we need to get wedding clothes fitted this afternoon. It's far from ideal, my goodness. Spend your first trip getting to know each other, regardless of how long you've known each other online. You need to get comfortable with each other, and you should be focusing on that. Go to Boracay or Moalboal or one of those nice quiet places, somewhere nice, and just gaze at each other. Eat lots of food and kiss and cuddle and do all those lovely romantic things that you can do when you're not pressured, and get to know the family too, but mostly get to know each other. Just learn to be comfortable in each other's physical presence. You do not want the pressure of standing in queues at government offices on your very first visit. There's also you will have culture shock regardless of what you think. My first trip way back in the 90s, goodness me, I don't know what I was expecting, but what I saw, it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. I was totally in shock. It took me a few days to a week to settle in and get used to it. But don't expect it. Trying to, goodness me, first trip, scary thought. So if you can stay, if you can stay a lot longer, if you're not working, if you can stay 3 months or something like that, well, sure, why not? You'll have time to do it. But again, if you need to get back to work, don't torture yourself over it. And you can always marry online. That option is there. I've put links down the bottom if you want to find out more about that. Look, personally, I don't care where you marry. I just remember the days of my first visits here. Couldn't imagine how dreadful it would be dealing with initial awkwardness and wedding preparations and gawking relatives at the same time. So, what's next? Well, what's next? Prepare yourselves, get vaccinated, get your passports updated if you need to, and look, smile. The light at the end of the tunnel is not very far off from the looks of things. Thanks very much.